You gave up like 2 hours ago. Shut your mouth. This has been the Michael Foles Show tonight. Brandon Shoemaker was just a passenger.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of From Art to Atoms.
The Ultimate Curiosity Show. Woo!
Put your phone down. You like the kids in class.
I cannot help it. I was texting a friend. She asked me about the podcast.
Oh, well, no, that was a valid reason then.
My mom just said, can you please tell me why someone who has lived with you and still don't know where the mayo goes in the refrigerator, is that just to start an argument or they just don't comprehend? I'm going to tell you, Mom, right now, that is not to start an argument. As someone that lives with a man that don't know how to put anything back and leaves lights on when he leaves a room, that's just who he is.
In her case, he just don't comprehend.
I didn't say that. You did.
Yeah, that's right. I did. Because I seriously doubt he's ever going to listen to this podcast.
Then I agree 100% with you.
All right, folks. Well, we're just rambling about...
No, we didn't do the opening.
Family. We did.
No.
You want to do it again?
Yes.
Okay.
This time for realsies.
Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of From Art to Atoms.
The Ultimate Curiosity Show.
This week, we are going to be talking about...
I have been looking forward to this episode for 5 episodes now.
Yes, he definitely
We
has.
are going to be discussing the sci-fi kings, Star Wars,
and Star Trek. We don't have the licensing.
They don't know what that is.
Yeah, that's true. That was hard to recognize.
Pew, pew.
Pew, pew. Yeah, I forgot to wear my pew, pew shirt. I have the best ever Star Wars shirt because it doesn't say Star Wars like most of them do. Instead, in the Star Wars font, it says pew, pew. And then in the middle, it says vroosh, beep, boop, vroosh.
This is your second interpretation, sound effect wise, of R2-D2.
I've done it before?
Yes, you have. And I don't remember what episode we did it in, but I do know that you did it. Because we were talking about our favorite movies, and we were talking about that Flight of the Navigator. And you said your favorite character or part of that is when that little monster he has makes the noises.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, it sounds like R2-D2 when he falls over.
Yeah.
Beep, 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 beep.
It does.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, this is a very special week for us because this is the first episode that we're recording after our podcast officially launched. We're recording this on Saturday, so 2 days ago, our episode 1 finally launched. And Michael has finally listened to the podcast because up until now, he has not heard anything.
To be fair, I've been terrified of what this was going to sound like. But I did listen to it when it came out. The first episode came out on Thursday. And now I have listened to all of our previous episodes this afternoon while I was preparing my work week. And so, yes.
And he was pleasantly surprised.
Yes.
I told him when we started this, I'm not going to do anything halfway. If I'm going to put something out there for public consumption, I want it to be of professional quality. So he didn't believe me, and now he knows better.
Anyway.
All right. So, yeah, this week, Star Wars versus Star Trek.
To be fair, we did discuss not versus.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of the point, at least that's the point that I know I want to make.
Okay.
Is that we're approaching it this way because in pop culture, a lot of folks debate these two franchises in opposition to one another. And, you have your... Oh, I'm Team Star Wars. No, I'm Team Star Trek. And da-da-da-da. My point is that it really isn't a battle against one versus the other because ultimately they're apples and oranges. Star Trek is science fiction, which is rooted on... Now, granted, they take extreme creative licensing, but it's rooted in, theoretical... but real theoretical science, whereas Star Wars is rooted in fantasy and mythology even. So we'll get into that a little bit more later on. But my take on this is that it isn't a battle between the two at all, because I personally have always been a huge fan of both Star Wars and Star Trek throughout my life. Anything that was involved with space or space travel was something that I was interested in. So that long before I had any understanding of why one was allegedly better than the other according to different groups or camps in pop culture. Will you put your phone down? You were not paying attention to a word I'm saying.
Listening to you. I'm going through deleting emails really fast. I am listening. I'm waiting for you to stop so I can cut in.
Well, yeah, cut in. I don't remember what I was saying.
You were saying that you've never thought it was one versus the other. It has always been they both stand alone equally well.
Yeah.
I don't think that they are also versus one another. I think that people just have their preference, and so for me, like, my preference was Star Trek, and I grew up with, I was introduced to it with The Next Generation I don't even think I watched the first season in '88 when it came out.
Yeah.
I think it was like season 3, that I don't know, was it the Best of Both Worlds? Was that the episode that the continuation, it was a cliffhanger at the end, I think, of season 3 going into season 4. And I think that's really kind of where I picked up on it. And I really think that's where Star Trek TNG got its wings, it really started to fly on its own. And then Star Wars, I was too young when the original films came out. Like, there was no, too young to understand what was going on in them, I guess.
Right.
And so when, don't hate me, but when The Phantom Menace came out, like when they did the rebirth and then they went back to episode 1 from the original trilogy that came out, I watched that. I didn't go to the movies, but I did watch it. I realized and recognized the characters and kind of got into the lore of it and the history of it and stuff like that. And then picked up from there, and so for me, I agree with you. It's not one versus the other. It's just people have their preference, and we've talked about nostalgia and stuff like that in previous episodes. And I think that Star Trek for me is that nostalgic aspect of it. 'Cause, growing up with it, and I remember, but it went off the air in '94. So I was 14 in that spring when it ended. And TV Guide had an episode for Next Generation that they were like a generation's end, something like that.
Right.
But so for me, I think that's where my preference is. It's definitely Star Trek. Star Wars, I understand it, appreciate it, but the philosophies behind both series are different for me.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Star Wars starts off with war and they're fighting for something, so they're fighting for peace.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a war aspect to it, whereas Star Trek Next Generation really was about,
they had peace and they were looking
the futuristic, the futuristic expectation of humanity and living in this exploration and up to humanity's full potential, and that was Next Generation. Now, when you get into Deep Space Nine, the third of the series of Star Trek series, that's when you get into the war stuff, because they had the Bajoran War with the Cardassians, and that's really where it kind of got dark. And I think that was the appeal of Next Generation to me, was that this is what humanity can be if we stop being selfish and putting ourselves first and thinking of everybody else too. And I think that was my draw to that, because you have to understand, my Star Trek time frame right there was also in my time frame of Captain Planet, when we're trying to save the world and be better than just an individual, but be humanity, know. So, because that was right around the same time frame too. Plug on that. Captain Planet, the complete series DVD boxes are coming out October 15th.
Oh, wow.
I've already ordered mine.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
It is.
Well, no, my timeline with Star Wars and Star Trek started from a very early age, because my dad actually got me interested. I think he probably is the one who got me interested in both of them. But he and I used to watch the old reruns of the original series with Shatner and Nimoy. And I don't know how old I was. I mean, I probably started watching when I was like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
It might have been right around the time when Next Generation was about to come out.
Let me ask you about that, though, because I don't think episodes of the original series were on television at that time. Was it the movies? Because the movies were still going on at that point.
No. It was reruns. So growing up in South Carolina, I don't know if it was local or regional or whatever, but there were, I don't remember what channel. It was probably Fox, but they would show reruns of the original series at some, I don't know. It was on the weekends.
And I think that's one reason why I had to start with Next Generation, because I don't think they
you didn't have the exposure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I don't really think, I want to say Sci-Fi Network maybe been the first exposure I had to the original series. I don't think they played on like Nick at Night. I don't think that was one of those series they played. So it had to have been Sci-Fi Channel that showed those episodes. But I will say that I did watch as I was going through Next Generation, because, while Next Gen was on the air in syndication on television, the original cast was still filming the motion picture films at the same time.
Yeah.
And so getting into Next Generation, I did get into I think that was my introduction to the original series. The characters were the films.
Yeah.
As opposed to the series. And then I honestly can say I still haven't probably gone back and watched every single one of the episodes of the original, but I know most of the major episodes.
Sounds like a good.
We
were just last night talking about different series that we needed to sit down and watch collectively.
That's probably going to be when the snowstorm comes in and we're off for a whole week again. That's a binge week.
Yep. That sounds good. That sounds like a plan. But yeah, no, not to spend the whole episode talking again about nostalgia, but that was something that because my dad liked the original series, because, Gene Roddenberry envisioned the original series as essentially just a Western set in space.
Yeah.
And that was a trope that my dad recognized in the original series, and that's why he liked them.
Did he like Westerns?
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
Big time. And so, he got me into them that way, and then also through the films as well. And it really wasn't until after Next Generation had been on for a few years that I started catching it again in reruns, because it seems like they would show them like back to back, like they would show an episode of original series and then an episode of Next Generation.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was how I first got exposed to it. And then Star Wars, again, my dad, he just rented me the movies, and I remember it was because you got to keep in mind, before the release of Phantom Menace, well, it was a few years before. Do you remember when like the box set of all three original Star Wars movies came out? It was sometime in the 90s.
What are you talking about, VHS or DVD?
VHS, yeah.
Ooh, I don't remember.
Anyway, it had
been towards the later end of the decade.
It was maybe not. It was before Phantom Menace came out. When did that come out? 97, 6?
Or 98, I think.
98, okay. Sometime before that, there was a big to-do that they were releasing all three films in a box set, VHS, because the video store that we had in town, their copy of The Empire Strikes Back had broken. And I remember I saw it once when I was really little. And so, but then it broke. And so I didn't have access to that. So for the longest time, I had vague memories. I remembered Han Solo getting frozen in carbonite. But other than that, I just had vague memories of Empire Strikes Back. And I only had access to Star Wars, A New Hope, and Return of the Jedi. So there was this big chunk of the story that was missing for me, in my childhood brain, because I didn't have access to that second film. But then, of course, when they announced, oh gosh, I remember that vividly, when they announced that was the box set was coming out, my dad got it for me for Christmas, and Christmas afternoon, that was my thing. I skipped right over A New Hope and went straight for Empire Strikes Back, because that was the first time I had seen it. I was in my early teens or mid-teens by that point. It was the first time I had seen it since I was tiny and barely remembered it. But when we look at these two franchises, let's talk a minute about the science fiction element of Star Trek.
Okay.
Because and I remember me and my best friend Michael Paris, when we were in junior high, he and I together bought all these books that they were publishing about Star Trek. I wish I still had some of those. We just loved all those books, and how it would give you the schematics for how the phasers were built and how the warp core was designed and things like that essentially artists and I guess scientists or even pseudoscientists sort of like retrofitted, I guess, if you will. This is how theoretically you could actually this actually could happen.
Yeah, but to be fair, though, they did have an extensive library of schematics and history of the science aspect behind the show. Because you had Scotty's technical manager for the original series that came out well after the original series had ended and the movies were being in production. And then I remember Next Generation had a technical manual also.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, which talked about basically how a warp bubble was formed and how matter and antimatter come together through the filtration of the engines itself and how that all works and the computer core and how the turbolifts works. It's the behind the scenes stuff you don't really think about when they step into a turbolift, which is, if you don't know anything about Star Trek, is essentially an elevator, but an elevator goes up and down. Turbolifts go up and down, left, right.
Yeah.
And so how is all of that? They put the science behind it. So they made all that.
I remember vividly when I think I was probably a young adult at this point, when I realized that, or learned for the first time that antimatter was a real thing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, seriously? That's the real thing? And then I started kind of going back and studying more of the science behind it and how, theoretically they were arguing that this sort of propulsion system could have been made.
Mm-hmm. I had this book and I could have built a phaser had I had all the parts. I would have had to invent the parts. But
I need to see that book because I think it's probably the same one that I'm talking about.
It's a maroon cover with
and gold or
the Enterprise.
Yeah,
the skeleton of the Enterprise is on it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's I want to see
the tech manual.
Yeah.
And then
so Michael Paris, my friend in high school and junior high, he had that, and then I had the technical manual for the original series.
Yeah, and then they also had the companion book, which gave an episode by episode breakdown, and they had two of those. They started with the original companion book that went through first through fifth season and gave production notes on it and photos of each episode. And then by the time the seventh and final season came out, they had to come up with an amended book, which added the last two seasons to it. So, and that one was a blue cover. I had that one too.
Oh, that's cool. I want to see that one too. You still have that one?
I think so. I have to find them. They're in storage somewhere.
Yeah. But yeah, that the fact that it was based on genuine scientific principles, like I said, which I didn't fully appreciate and understand until, probably early college, is one of the things that, like I said, I think sets it more in the apples category as opposed to the oranges of Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Because with Star Wars, you have, it's true fantasy. I mean, a lightsaber is epically cool. But there's no real science behind it. Exactly.
Give it to Disney to go ahead and make those, though.
Well, yeah.
Because now you can go and get one made.
Yeah.
That'd be an episode. Does fantasy drive technology?
Oh, yes. I could start talking about that right now. But yeah, let me write that down.
Because if you think about it, like even Next Generation with the pads they had, what do we have now?
Yeah, the iPad is 100% based on that.
Let's just say the communicator from the original series. What does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
That was an old flip phone.
It's a flip phone.
So our products that we have now, are they as a result, or are they designed intentionally to mimic or look like what was fantasy?
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and tell you now, I'm convinced, yes, it is.
Okay.
But anyway, that can be we're just brainstorming on air now, but that would be a good tie-in to on the art side of things, form versus function.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when we look at, so if apples are the Star Trek, then Star Wars is the orange. So looking at Star Wars.
Okay. What do you think about that, R2?
Look up his
scream.
His scream and tell me it's not the same thing as the little guy on.
You can do the R2D2 scream for 10 hours.
Oh, Jesus.
It's about to begin.
I don't need 10 hours.
Like it's legit 10 hours.
I just need one. Is it just continuous nonstop? Okay, well, one of those, and then after that, he falls over.
I'm going to play that in my classroom on Monday.
play it when they come in.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, is this to set the tone for today's lesson?
They have testing on Monday, state testing.
Oh, that sucks. State testing? It's September.
Yeah, it's initial growth test though.
Oh,
like it's our initial test to build they're set the baseline, so I know what to compare it to for the rest of the year.
Oh God, talk about a topic for another episode. Ugh. All right. Anyway, so yeah, if Star Trek is grounded in science fiction and, you know, building a fictional world based on authentic scientific principles, Star Wars is more on the side of fantasy, but that's not to say it doesn't have a basis around it. It's very much rooted in mythology.
It is. And, you know, Star Wars was not about really the science.
No.
It was more about the storytelling of it, you know?
Yeah.
And that goes to your point of the mythology of it. I mean, there was a story behind it with a history. And, you know, George Lucas definitely built a universe.
Yeah.
When he even did the first 3 films.
Yeah. Well, and so I guess we should talk about that because, you know, most people, if they're fans, know this already. But if you're not that familiar with Star Wars, then you probably don't. The original Star Wars film, which now we consider A New Hope, but was originally just titled Star Wars, was written as the first part of a trilogy, which became episodes 4, 5, and 6, which were A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and The Return of the Jedi. He wrote it as one huge story, but he said, okay, this is way too big to make a single feature-length film on, so I'm just going to take this first chunk and make this film, and then, you know, if it goes well in a perfect world, then I'll be able to do all 3 of them. Meanwhile, to flesh out the characters, essentially what it boiled down to, he was a good storyteller and a good writer with enough wherewithal in terms of what was necessary to drive the story to know he also had to have a solid backstory that led up to the start of his story, which was episode 4, A New Hope. And so that's how we wound up with a total of initially of 6 films that he envisioned originally, and since then have come up to 9. But that was after Disney got involved, and Disney is the one that created, or the ones that created, those last 3 films. Although I think they did a great job. I know a lot of people, myself included, were very skeptical that Disney was going to somehow Disneyfy it. And I think they've done a brilliant job of maintaining exactly what it was meant to be.
Well, I mean, not just even in the films. I mean, you look at what they've done with the series, you know, The Mandalorian.
Absolutely.
They did.
They've taken it and explode, you know, because before Star Trek had a much more vast universe than Star Wars, but now that Disney has taken over, they have really gone into great detail to fully flesh it out, and it is light years ahead now of what Star Trek ever could have been.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of Disney's strengths.
Yeah.
You know, they're really good at world building.
But yeah, you know, the Disney influence has had an immense impact on creating even more story for us to consume. And of course, you know, they're trying to sell a product, which is the stories themselves, and we are the consumers. So it's not like they're just doing it for
money,
altruistic reasons. But
I think they are, but I also think that they know that if they do it wrong,
well, yeah,
you know, their fans, the both universe fans, Star Wars and Star Trek fans, are very, very particular and very, very protective of those franchises.
Yeah. Well, and Disney has done the best thing they possibly could have. They've hired Star Wars fans
to build on
to direct them and to create them. So, you know, I think that's the real reason why it's become, I mean, it's kind of a beautiful thing when you really look at it, how evolved it has gotten.
That's what I was going to talk about, the aspect of the world building. So even before episodes 1, 2, and 3 came out with George Lucas, and before 7, 8, 9 came out, you know, you mentioned in Star Wars that the worlds were not as advanced at that point.
Yeah.
But they were in comic book form.
Yes, and novels.
Yes. So the comic book form of both of those, because I think the comic books for Star Wars actually picked up when they realized that the original Star Wars film was going to be as successful as it was back in the 70s. What came out in 78, I think?
77, I think.
Yeah, it's late 70s. You know, they knew that they had a hit on their hands, and it goes back to also the toy collection, the action figures.
Yeah.
And I was watching something today about how Star Trek toys, action figures, were not as advanced as Star Wars toys mm-hmm. were. And one of the things was because each of the Star Trek toys, the figures were taller than that could fit in the play sets and the other ships and stuff like that. Whereas with like the Millennium Falcon, the original one that came out, you could fit the action figures in it and actually have an adventure in that, as opposed to there was never an Enterprise that you could fit the action figures in, you know, in their stations. But so they were, and also that they did not just make one action figure when they did the Star Wars, mm-hmm. Even the original line of toys.
Yeah.
I think Kenner was in charge of that, I believe. But they did numerous figures. Like they had a figure for almost every single character that was in the film.
Yeah.
And that is what really allowed the toy line to be what it was, because you really could set your own adventure with every character you've seen on the film.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that helped. And like I said, the comic book world building in both of those franchises, especially Star Wars, because it was very limited in the three films. You didn't have Star Wars television shows to expand on that.
Right.
For almost 30 years, really until the last 5 years, I guess, when Disney really kind of took over. Mandalorian was really one of the first ones coming out television-wise. And it's expanded dramatically, you know.
Yeah.
You have...
you had a few things, like the Ewoks had a cartoon back in like the late 80s.
But I don't think that was anything that really built on the storyline. That was just, hey, and the Ewoks movie, too. Let's not even... forgot about that. But that really wasn't anything to do with the franchise itself, other than it included the Ewoks in it. You know, it didn't have anything to do with the Skywalkers or the Empire or anything.
Right.
But the comic books definitely did a good job on building the worlds. And you know, I will tell you, going weekly, they still have both franchises. I think right now Star Trek has 3 publications, mm-hmm. and they're about to have a 4th one come out monthly. And Star Wars, I want to say, has at least 8. About 7 or 8 publications right now that they're continually going on. So there's definitely a huge development of the universes, both universes. And really, I don't want to say it's hard to jump into them, because it's really not. You have a lot of entry points into every single one.
No, but I know what you're trying to say. It can feel overwhelming if you are like, because like I'm a big fan of Star Wars, and there are several series that I still have not seen. I've only seen the first season of The Mandalorian. I've still got to get back. Or did I watch the second one? That's the point, though. I'm not even sure at this point.
Right.
But, oh gosh.
Ahsoka came out.
Haven't seen that. Oh gosh. What else?
What is Luke's mentor? Obi-Wan came out.
I did see that.
So that was a series that came out.
Yeah, which was fantastic, by the way. I loved that. But you have
other ones that because we watched The Mandalorian, but we didn't watch Ahsoka. But I will tell you, Star Wars, The Clone Wars.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
So I will tell you that one of my best friends, Jessica, her and her husband, Corey, they just sent their son off to college, and their daughter is a junior in high school right now. And so they've, you know, the kids have grown up watching that. But I will tell you that she will swear up and down about The Clone Wars, that it is written for adults. Like it's not a show that is just a cartoon with the characters. It is a story-driven cartoon.
Yeah.
And she'll swear up and down that it's some of the best writing she's seen on a show. And I'll tell you, Avatar The Last Airbender, if you watch the cartoon of that's what that reminds me of, is that is a story-driven cartoon. It is not a cartoon that's just to be a cartoon. It is a well-developed beast.
Yeah.
You know, and I think The Clone Wars, she said, was very good to that effect, that it builds the world.
I'll have to go back and give that one a try too then. But yeah, but to get back to, you know, the heart of the matter for Star Wars, which was the mythos, the mythology behind it. And that when I was a senior in high school, and I already had a vague sense of it. Like there were lots of things that I recognized in Star Wars, like stormtroopers. I knew that was a symbolic for the stormtroopers of World War II, and that the film itself was essentially an allegory of World War II and the Third Reich with the Empire. But then when I was a senior in high school, we learned about Joseph Campbell. We had to read The Power of Myth, which was a book that was essentially an extended interview that he did with Bill Moyers after he had published The Hero with 1,000 Faces. In this book, he talks extensively about, it's heavily grounded in Jungian philosophy, and he talks about how, universally throughout cultures, no matter if they have never, if they never had any interactions, they have all these same stories that come up. They all have a creation story. They all have these hero stories that follow what he called the hero's journey, which was a predictable series of steps that the hero of any story from all these different cultures follows. And he used Star Wars as an example of how, and this was published, around the time when Star Wars Episode 4 originally came out. And he talked about how Star Wars was the most recent example of how this is still our core system for storytelling. And then as a result, after the fact, George Lucas made statements saying that, yes, he intentionally was following the steps of the hero's journey in telling the story of Luke and more broadly, the story of Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader. So for me, especially as a former English teacher, there is a huge amount to be appreciated about Star Wars that just goes alone from the angle of looking at it for its literary merit, essentially through its storytelling and its mythology. Just like with the Force, which is based on Eastern religions' concepts of like chi, and the fact that we all share this life energy throughout existence. Those are actual teachings of Eastern philosophy and Eastern religions. So the foundations behind Star Wars were definitely elements that have a very real world application in them and create a sense of connectedness. They create a sense of universality. So that's why I always look at it in terms of it's not a debate. It's not an issue of
one versus the other. They are two completely different concepts, two completely different, what am I trying to say? Not concept. They're apples and oranges.
Yeah, they're apples and oranges. They're two completely different things that can be appreciated for, you can like apples and you can like oranges, and they don't, have to.
You can like apples and oranges together.
Exactly. You don't have to pick one. It's not like you have to only eat apples for the rest of your life and damn the oranges.
Sci-fi fruit salad.
That sounds like
That's a good hashtag right there.
Oh, God, I hate hashtags, but you're right.
Red wine supernova.
What?
That Chaperone song.
Oh.
But it could also be sci-fi fruit salad.
I'm not well versed in her oeuvre yet.
I would like to thank my husband for that.
Oh yeah,
my exposure to her. I
do like her work. I don't know all of it yet.
If you listen to it, it's catchy. It grows. Yeah. It grows on you for sure.
It's catchy, and I like it has depth too.
It does.
Not the topic of this podcast.
We should invite her onto this show.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, because that would happen. We can't even get your husband on this show. He was supposed to be here tonight.
To be fair, he was at a school-related event all day today from 6 o'clock this morning. Yeah, to about 4:30. So to be fair.
And part of that was he was chaperoning some of my students too. So yeah. He was doing me a solid.
He was.
So we'll catch Thomas on the next episode.
One day.
All right. Are we ready for trivia?
Yep. What do we want to do tonight? Star Wars and Star Trek trivia.
Of course. Duh.
All right. Let's
use Google. ChatGPT. She done us wrong a few times now.
Oh, you don't like Chatty?
Well, I mean, we asked for challenging questions and they give us stuff that never even happened.
Oh, what is Google's? Is it Gemini? Is it their AI?
No, it's what is it? Maybe it is Gemini. Wait, what is it?
I think it is. Yeah.
It's something.
It's Gemini.
It is? Okay.
Yep. Bard is now Gemini. Get help with writing. BARD. Bard. Get help with writing, planning, learning, and more from Google AI. Yep.
Okay. Well, let's try it. Is it powered by something other than ChatGPT?
It's powered by Google.
Powered by Google.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Gemini. I gotta download the app.
How do I do? Oh, it's okay. I just typed goggle.
How'd that work out for you?
Not what I needed. I do have the Google app. Okay.
Wait. If you have it, then I have it.
Did I install the apps on your phone? How do you know?
Well, why would you have it? What did you need it for?
I don't know. I just have it. It says open.
Okay. Well, I don't have it.
Well, then install it.
Womp womp.
Ooh, I can talk.
Well, I'm glad you reached that skill.
Shut up. Do you want to do Star Wars or Star Trek?
Do Star Trek on me and do Star Wars on you.
Okay.
Because that's where our comfort zones are.
Okay. Generate 5 trivia questions about the Star Trek universe at a moderate level of difficulty. Oh, Jesus.
Let it talk for you.
Well, no, I can talk for myself.
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
What is the name of the Star Trek species that is known for their cold logic and pointy ears? Okay,
That's the Vulcans.
We always have this problem. In which Star Trek series does Captain Benjamin Sisko serve aboard a space station rather than a starship?
Deep Space
These are too easy. Who's the first human to make contact with the Vulcans, and what is their famous greeting?
Zephyr Cochrane, and the Vulcans' famous greeting is "Live long and prosper."
What is the name of the device used to transport people and objects from one place to another in the Star Trek universe?
What's it doing to them?
Transporting them.
Thank you for answering the question.
What is the prime directive in Star Trek, and what does it prohibit Starfleet from doing? That's a good one. I mean, even though I know you know it, but...
The prime directive of Starfleet is to not interfere with non-warp capable species. They are not to involve themselves or to influence the development of lesser developed species or civilizations.
This says you got number 3 wrong. It says it was Charles Tripp Tucker.
Oh, it's probably an original series, but that's... Yeah. No. Because Tripp came from Enterprise. The series Enterprise. He was the engineer on Enterprise.
Oh.
So unless they did a retro episode where he went back in time. But that was after Zephyr Cochrane because they're on the ship that is developed after. So, Well, I have your Star Wars ones ready to go.
Okay, give me Star Wars.
Okay. In The Empire Strikes Back, what is the name of the bounty hunter who wears a green suit and is later retconned into having survived the Sarlacc pits?
Boba Fett.
Okay, that one's easy. What is the name of the Sith Lord who was known for creating the Rule of Two?
Oh, was that Darth Sidious?
No, Darth Bane.
Oh, never heard of him.
In the original 1977 release of A New Hope, what was the original name of the rebel leader who appears in the Yavin 4 War Room and later had his name changed in subsequent re-releases?
Oh, Lord.
It's a general.
Oh, was it... I don't know.
General Dudana?
And what was it changed to?
It was General Jan Dudana, and then it's just simply changed to General Dudana.
Oh, that's weird.
Okay, in The Phantom Menace, how many pod racers, including Anakin Skywalker, compete in the Bonta Eve Classic?
I don't know.
I asked for hard questions, and it gave me hard questions.
You were supposed to ask for moderate. You wanted moderate. I gave you moderate.
I mean, you got the first one right. I'll go back and change it.
Well, no. Let me finish these since they're here.
You're not going to finish it though. You're not going to finish the next one either.
Oh, was it 12? I don't know.
It's 18.
18.
And the last question, in the Star Wars Legends, formerly expanded universe.
Oh.
Right. What is the name of the alien species that invaded the galaxy and was immune to the Force?
Oh, I don't know. What was that?
I can't even pronounce it. The Yuzon Vong?
Oh, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, what was it? E.T.? Since they were, you remember how E.T. was in, the E.T. aliens were in one of the prequel episodes. I don't remember which one.
What?
Yeah, you didn't notice that in the Imperial Senate or whatever it was called before it was Imperial. In one of the little representative pods, it's ET aliens.
I'll have to go and find that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Look, let's just go ahead and put a fork in this sucker because it's done.
Have mercy. Okay, this was not my night.
But it was mine. I won trivia. I won trivia.
All right. That does it for episode 6 of From Art to Atoms,
The Ultimate Curiosity Show.
Thanks so much for joining us once again.
Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.
You've been listening to From Art to Atoms, The Ultimate Curiosity Show, episode number 6. Your hosts are Brandon Shoemaker and myself, Michael Fulse. The show is produced by Brandon Shoemaker and is available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show to stay up to date on all of our latest episodes and news. If you have any questions, feedback, or suggested topics you'd like us to dive into, don't hesitate to reach out. You can email us at FromArtToAtoms@gmail.com. We would love to hear from our listeners and we value your input. Don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on upcoming episodes and behind-the-scenes content. You can find us on Instagram at From Art to Atoms. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us reach even more interested minds like yours. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay curious.